Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this a special edition of NATS Chat, where we are going to talk about the importance of the collaborative pianist. We teachers are so grateful to all of you and all of the pianists listening. So thank you for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And I wanted to say I'm Kari Reagan. I'm the NATS moderator, and they are sponsored by Inside View Press. And I will be joined in a moment by our executive director, Alan Henderson, but right now, Karen Brunson, the current president, would like to just say a few words before we get started.
This has been an incredible change in our lives, and we're really glad that NATS kind of sprang into action with a lot of these NATS chats. And Kari Reagan and Alan Henderson are working around the clock, coming up with new ideas all the time, and there are more ahead, which is very exciting. I'm really excited about tonight because I miss my collaborative pianists so much. And my students, I just had a rash of emails from them because we're going to start online lessons on Monday, and they don't know what to do. And so I'm really hoping, and I know everybody out there, never have we loved our collaborative pianists more than we do now. We've taken them for granted. We never will again. You know, I never have. I love my pianists in my studio, and I think I speak for most of us teachers. When a great pianist comes into our studio and plays, it elevates the lessons so much and elevates the art that we do. And frankly, all this great music was, most of it, written for piano and singer, not just the singer, for piano and singer. So I think we're going to get a lot out of tonight. So thanks so much, everybody, for coming, and thanks to these wonderful artists for being with us tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. I'm getting a couple notes that there is no video. I'm hoping that that is just a couple people, and you might just have to log off and log back on. And I'm hoping it's not a lot of people. You should see all my wonderful panelists. And let me take just a moment and orient all of you. You have a chat box in the go-to control panel and a question box. So you can, on the far right, you will see a little square box with an arrow. You can click on that and it will open a little box. You can use the question box to send me a question. Please hold your questions for now because chances are we're going to try and cover a question you might have. So wait till we get to that topic, and then you're welcome to ask questions. Only myself and Alan Henderson can see them. The panelists cannot. And there is a chat box that you can use to speak to each other and the entire audience. So, and yes, the NATS chats are always recorded. There are 5 years of them now, archived and recorded. In fact, Craig Terry, I had your lovely friend Christine Brewer on just a year ago this month as my special guest. You'll see many wonderful doctors that I've had on, professional singers, other voice teachers. So we have a breadth of archived, and they can be found on nats.org or on YouTube. Just type in NATS official. Okay, so let's get to our wonderful panelists. And I want you just to share a couple minutes worth of where you are in the country, where you teach, a little bit about yourself. Nicholas, would you like to lead us off?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Nicholas Shaneyfelt. I'm based in Decorah, Iowa at Luther College. I'm in my 4th year of teaching as assistant professor of collaborative piano and vocal coaching. So I work with vocalists, about 21 vocalists that I coach weekly. I also have a couple of pianists who have an interest in collaborative piano that I work with on a weekly basis. I teach an accompanying class twice a week to pianists of various levels. And then I also work with our opera program throughout the year. So we are working through various sets of challenges for each of those classes and trying to come up with some inventive solutions. In addition, I am also a co-director of the International Music Festival of the Adriatic. It's a festival that takes place in Duino, Italy, just outside of Trieste, every summer. And unfortunately, we had to cancel the festival this summer. So that's just another way that the gig lifestyle and the festival lifestyle has been affected for myself and for, I'm sure, many of you that are tuning in this evening.
Thank you, Nicholas. And now my wonderful colleague, Rhonda Kline, who teaches with me at the University of Washington in Seattle. Rhonda, would you share a little bit about what you do? The mini hats you wear, actually.
Well, similarly to Nicholas, and hello everyone, I'm Rhonda. I'm at the University of Washington in an artist in residence position, actually. I do teach some accompanying classes to both undergrads and graduates. It's open to non-majors as well, so I have many interesting challenges from time to time with that, but I love it that it's available to anyone who can pass a rudimentary audition, at least with some sight reading, and I can see where they're at as we get started. So that's one thing I do at the university. The other thing I do is I am director of accompanying, and I supervise and place about maybe 13 to 15 professional accompanists that the university pays out of our budgets for doing studio accompanying for the lessons for instrumentalists, vocalists, and all ensembles, such as choral groups, opera workshop, modern music ensemble, and Baroque ensemble. So it's a lot of placement and supervision duties. In addition, we require accompanying from all piano performance majors. Different levels are required based on whether they're undergrad or graduate, but that supervision and placement into the studios and ensembles is part of my job, which I love. I love matching, finding the best match. What are their interests to begin with? What are their capabilities and sort of affinities, but then also grow them outside of some of those comfort zones and make sure by the time the student leaves, they've had hopefully a snippet of accompanying in all areas, ensemble and individual, instrumental and vocal. So that's kind of at the University of Washington what I do, in addition coaching vocal theater workshop performances and student operas that we have. I'm kind of the music preparation coach for that. Outside of the school, I work with a nonprofit called Noise, Northwest Opera in Schools, etc., which is geared for opera outreach for kindergarten through 6th grade level. It's tied to the Common Core standards of the state of Washington in the arts and language and history and math and all other kinds of things. And it's on my mind a little bit because March is our tour month. We have a 5-week tour. We had 62 performances lined up into schools across the state, which represents a lot of students. We average anywhere from 200 to 500 per performance. But sadly, 49 of those were lost when schools were closed for the next 6 weeks. That meant an impact on my artists. We double cast everything. We were doing the Magic Flute this year with 5 singers and a pianist. Double cast, that meant 10 singers and 2 pianists lost a projected income for the month and the opportunity just to be in the schools and share the joy of opera and music with students. And I think that's about it. Summer program, I am involved in Italy like Nicholas with Canti in Italia, based in Lucca. And it's sadly not happening this year, but that is a study abroad program for singers to study opera and language, Italian language and culture. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, Rhonda, so much. Laurie, would you like to share a bit about where you are and what you do?
Happy to, and good evening, everybody. I'm realizing I got my degree in all this before it was called collaborative piano, back when it was called vocal accompaniment in the dark ages. Right now, I'm currently in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful day. It feels very strange to be quarantined. We're on a lockdown for 2 weeks. I have a lot of jobs. My summer gig, which is really a year-round gig, I'm the director of the Young Artist Program at Opera Saratoga, up in Saratoga Springs, New York, that used to be called Lake George Opera. And I've been there for 10 years. Right now, I also teach part-time at the University of Alabama, where I am the music director of the opera program. And I conduct the operas, I coach the grad students, I can work with the undergrads if they sign up through another program. I've done a lot of conducting in the last few years at the university level, so working with singers and pianists who are in training. And my career was started with many years of working with opera companies as a repetiteur, as an assistant conductor, playing the rep, and learning the rep that way. So a lot of hats, but that's where I am at the moment. I'm happy to be included.
Thank you, Laurie. And Craig, I had the privilege, of course, of seeing you at the last NATS conference, a play for Stephanie Blythe and Christine Brewer. So it's such a pleasure to have you on here with us tonight.
Thank you. That was a totally magical evening.
Magical evening for all of us in the audience. Yeah.
felt super honored just to be there and be a part of it. So thanks for having me also tonight.
We're
This is
thrilled.
really fun to meet some fun new people and see old friends and all that. So I'm the music director of the Ryan Opera Center at Lyric Opera of Chicago. We have 12 young singers and 1 young pianist, all super gifted, really, fun to work with and rewarding in that way. I also have the privilege of traveling the world with many, many sensationally gifted singers, which is, it's been fun to, as a pianist, I started out, I grew up in Tennessee, and my dad's family are all bluegrass pickers and players, so I played by ear when I started, and I think the idea now in my professional life of arranging music and trying to help singers figure out how they can be their best communicative spirits with their energy, as well as help the audience be able to connect the dots for what we all do, because it's, I think they need that from us too, as a thing. So I have these like many hats that I wear, but they're all interesting and wonderfully fortunate to have a job that lets me be as creative as possible.
Love that. Thank you so much. So since you're interested in bluegrass, have you gone to Christine Brewer's Labor Day party that we were invited?
This is kind of a sore spot because every year now for like 15 years, perhaps, it's always fallen on a weekend that we can't go. And so one of these years we're going to make it down there for the Hootenanny because
I am dying. Yes, I'm dying to go.
Well, she is a good fiddler and she plays the harmonica. I mean, she's killer.
Oh, I hope to go. That's on my bucket list for sure. And for those of you who have seen that hilarious meme about artist in residence, I would just like to say on behalf of Rhonda and I that that is our true and official title at the University of Washington. Have you all seen that funny meme going around? Yes. So anyway, just for the record, when Rhonda said that, I thought, oh wait, just so you all know, she's not joking. All right, so we'll spend just a few minutes talking about how the COVID-19 has impacted your profession, and we don't want to belabor it, we all know, but let's talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to move into some creative solutions. So whoever wants to go first, just tell us a little bit about how it's impacting individually, obviously, as a collaborative pianist.
Well, the obvious way is that everything is canceled. I mean, that's the first most real way, but it also has given us lots of opportunities to create different kinds of music, which I think is kind of what we'll talk about tonight as it goes. Lyric canceled the Ring Cycle, which is a huge blow to everyone that had worked so hard over 4 years to put together something that, is a huge deal for any opera company to put together. And, you feel for the artists and what that is. For our young artists at Lyric, they're still on salary, we're still working with them, we're still, like, their lives have become much more web-based, but it gives them more time to study languages and to, as pianists, as we make endless karaoke tracks for them to rehearse with and sing, it'll be an interesting shift in the way artistry works and how individual you have to be about it. And that's already what I'm seeing from people. They see that they have to be more compelling because they're boxed into this thing, which we're not boxing them in by the way that we play it, but just live music is different than that. And so I feel like people could emerge tremendously improved as artists from all of this work.
Wow. What a wonderful thought at the beginning here. Anyone else?
Sorry, we just finished the first half of our semester at Luther College, and we're currently on spring break. So in the opera production we were working on, Nicolai's Merry Wives of Windsor, we just finished music rehearsals and we're just getting ready to transition into staging rehearsals, and poof, all of this happened. So the message we sort of left with our students on the way out was that this is certainly not the first time, and it won't be the last time that you're affected by a cancellation or an interruption or some type of schedule change, no matter what the reason is. But we're trying to figure out, and we'll talk about this, what the creative solutions are, especially for a class that is as focused as much on the process as it is on the product, the final product being the culminating performance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Rhonda or Laurie, anything specific you'd like to add to this aspect of?
I think I said before we went live with everybody, you know, at Alabama, we were fortunate enough that we did our opera production in the end of February, beginning of March, in the middle of the semester. So we did get to perform that, which was Michael Ching's wonderful world premiere of his new piece, Remove Shoes Before Entering, which I recommend highly. Unfortunately, I was also getting ready to conduct Marriage of Figaro at the University of Memphis, and I had been there for about a week in residency a couple weeks ago just to get them started, to talk down the people who had never done recitatives before, to sort of just get the ball rolling, and was looking forward to going back. What I think my take on everything is, of course, everything's canceled. We're going through those stages of grieving right now, you know, and I think we're finally at the acceptance stage. I think there was the anger and the denial and the bargaining, and I think we're at acceptance at this point. And out of that acceptance, I think, is coming this new sort of, how can we make this work? And I'm just so blown away by people's ingenuity and creativity and what they're coming up with. I'm not a technical person, so I'm kind of sitting back waiting for people to show me how to make the tech stuff work. But just watching, when people's backs are against the wall, they want to be doing this so badly, you know, that they're going to make it work one way or another. And I think that's why we're doing this tonight, is to figure out how we can make it work.
Yep.
I love that.
At the University of Washington, we were just getting ready to mount in 1 month 3 one-acts. Menotti's Old Maid and the Thief, and Samuel Barber, A Hand of Bridge, and Malaconi's Face on the Barroom Floor, or as I saw recently, Don't Touch the Face on the Barroom Floor. But yes, like Laurie and Nicholas have said, we're trying to figure out new ways to, can we make this happen? Well, with Hand of Bridge, what if we videotape each person individually? It's mostly individual work, very few ensemble. Can we make some kind of virtual performance out of this with recorded tracks? And that's all still to be determined. We're waiting to see what possibilities we can come up with.
The beauty of this generation of young students is that they'll figure it out. Figure it out in a flash. If I have any issues at all the Opera Center artists are like, oh no, it's just Craig. He doesn't know what he's doing, but we'll teach him. We'll let him figure it out.
I don't think I've ever been so glad than now to be in a creative field, right? I just am, and we did a mental health NATS chat on Sunday, and you know, as I said then as well, it's really musicians who lead us out of the darkest times of history. And I think it's because we are creative people, you know, at our core, we're creative people, and we're seeing that tenfold right now. I just want to welcome someone who's introduced herself. We have Rachel Fuller, who's from Auckland, New Zealand, joining us.
Amazing.
That may be the farthest away we've ever had live, so thank you. And now that Alan Henderson is on camera again, I just want to reintroduce our executive director, Alan Henderson for NATS, who has been a leader always, but in the last few weeks, really amazing. Well, let's take the conversation now into creative solutions for income for the foreseeable future, for artistic continuation for the foreseeable future. I know that we've all talked a little bit about that it's time for professional development. Craig mentioned that already. Nicholas, you had some very specific thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, and this, you know, this is an idea that I'm also floating to my students, not just vocalists, but also the pianists that have an interest in collaborative piano. This is a great time to work on languages, and basically any opportunity I have to take a walk outside, and there have been lots of them recently. That's when I'm putting on a Pimsleur method tape and listening to Pimsleur German or Pimsleur Italian. And there are just tons of apps out there to sort of connect you and think of language study from the conversational point of view. One app that I just subscribed to at the beginning of this year is called Fluent Forever. And it's something that connects language learning with images as a way to sort of not only learn vocabulary, but to memorize the sentences that you associate with those. And I think this is a really great time to do that. I think Rhonda or Laurie also mentioned in our chat leading up to this, that this is a great time to spend some time, you know, in the depths, in a dictionary and a verb book, and translate a full song cycle, or translate an opera the old-fashioned way without the help of Nico or without the help of IPA source, for instance. And you know, every minute that you do that is a minute well spent. So
Nicholas, tell us why the old-fashioned way? What do you see as the benefit of that?
well, I think, you know, anytime you look in a dictionary and anytime you're engaging with a specific word that has multiple meanings, you are the person that's in charge of sorting out what that means or how it fits into the context of your character or the context of the poem in which it's placed. So really, I think it allows you and gives you more license to have power over the translation. In other words, you are creating your own translation of a piece in another language, and I think that is great power.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add on a little bit in terms of just you know, professional development? If we're not talking about earning money right now, but just about keeping yourself sharpened in the languages and everything else. For pianists specifically, I would say play through so much rep. You know, sit down open up a score you haven't played before, an opera you don't know, play through it. If it's, when you do, get the full score, go find the full score and do your homework on that and start doing your deep dive on what the orchestration is. How do I play this more like an orchestra? You know, and get the full score out in front of your piano vocal and just start doing the comparison and doing that kind of work too, as well as the language side of things. I think just to increase your rep knowledge and your, you know, get the pieces in your hands.
Absolutely.
Can never
I
have
would
too
also
much.
say this is the time. Sorry, Rhonda. I would also say this is the time to, if you were scared of Cyrillic before, or if you were scared of Swedish or Czech diction, go check out the book or go find the resource on any of those languages and use this time to learn now, or refresh the rules of the nitty-gritty rules of diction for Italian or German, or, you know, something that you've engaged with for a long time, but you just need that refresher.
I think the career in the arts is all about just being able to look in the mirror and be honest about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And given some time to schedule yourself, you know, the things I'm not good at are what I work on all the time. And I feel like for young musicians, young people, for human beings, this is the time that we all have to make it happen. Like for me, I'm learning some new rep that I've always wanted to learn, and now I have time. So I'm doing that. But, you know, if you're not good at languages, or you're not good at the emotional side of being vulnerable as an artist, this is time to really think about that and read poetry and read books and listen to music to help you as a person figure out who you are and how you'll be able to relate to the audience when we come out of all this.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. Someone's asking, or yes, a question. To college teachers of student collaborators, how do we engage and nurture those students who now cannot, at least at my school, be in the same room with their partners? Anyone?
Well, I've been thinking about this for my accompanying class. Like Rhonda, I have a class with a variety of levels. I have some that are a senior that's graduating and heading to a master's program in collaborative piano, and I have some first-year students that are getting their feet wet, and I have a couple of music education majors who want to get more comfortable with the skills, and they know that they're going to be in a classroom of 7th and 8th graders who are going to eat them alive if their piano skills aren't up to snuff. So I'm thinking about the rudiments of what makes a good collaborator, what makes a good accompanist, in terms of filling yourself with breath in the same way that your partner fills themselves with breath, instrumental or vocal. And I'm also thinking about singing and playing for yourself.
Yes.
And so I really think that going forward, I'm going to make very targeted assignments for for each of my collaborative pianists in that class. Through this first half of the semester, I've been sort of silently observing their strengths and their weaknesses, and now this is an opportunity for me to sort of tailor for them a plan going forward. So, can you record a video of yourself playing through the first 3 songs of Die Liebe, for instance, singing and playing. And for those for whom maybe piano skills are not quite as strong, can you do that with your right hand only and singing, or your left hand only and singing? So those are the sorts of solutions that I'm working through.
I was going to second the same thing about singing and playing. That was how I trained from the very beginning with my degree, was singing and playing. I think the first week at New England Conservatory, they gave me the first half of the Barbara Hermit songs to sing and play. And then the second week was the second half. And we went from there. No, it's the best training, you know, if you're doing collaborative work, you know, with singers anyway, instrumentalists being a different breed, but that's why we're here at NATS and not with one of the instrumental organizations. Is singing and playing and understanding the diction challenges, the breathing challenges, how the line works, how the diction feeds into it. And so that when you're coaching, as we know, when you get to the point where you're coaching with the singer, that you can, if they're working on an opera role, you can sing the cues back to them back and forth, you know, that you know where the inherent problems are with the breathing, with the phrasing, so you know exactly what they have to do. So I think that can't be stressed enough. I would absolutely second Nicholas on that one.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to someone today in the afternoon about the possibility of what I've noticed in my electronic things in the last few days about making a track and then having people sing to it. It kind of goes both ways. I think it would be kind of fun to record yourself sing, if you're a pianist, a cappella, sing whatever it is that you think, and then play along with yourself and see if the musicianship matches, which I think would be interesting to note, like where you're more comfortable and where you're less comfortable. And I think one could grow a lot from that.
Great.
I think I would add, you know, one thing I'll do at some level, I know Laurie and Craig, especially for quite a while, is listen to a lot of audition tapes for summer programs. And I think a lot of these collaborative pianists who are students aspire to be some of you one day. And this time might be a great time for them to just listen to a lot of singers, even their own singers that they've worked with, have them make recordings, listen to them with an ear for the kinds of things that you might decide, you know, yes, up or down, you know, as far as an audition tape kind of thing. That's a different and a unique skill, I think, that is important. And it might be something that maybe we haven't incorporated into our classes per se, many people, but this unique situation we're in might also give an opportunity to try some of that.
Well,
I think there's, sorry, go ahead, Rhonda.
We have such resources at our fingertips now. I know I used to really scold my students a few years ago because instead of using library online resources of Naxos catalog, which has millions of things, they're going to YouTube. Well, now guess what? I'm going to YouTube myself often for finding recordings of incredible people from the decades that preceded us, and including we can find Gerald Moore, to me one of the epic collaborative pianists of all time, with Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau and Victoria de Los Angeles and all kinds of other people. We have lectures of him talking to pianists about accompanying. And so I think those types of resources we can find for kind of, I loved, it was mentioned actually at a NATS chat last week, we're not necessarily creator of content, but the curator of content. If we can find these kinds of resources online to sort of steer our students in that direction, there's some wonderful experts we can learn from and then discuss in our Zoom meetings weekly.
Absolutely.
I had this sort of aha moment after watching the Met broadcast of Traviata last week, where after the bows, they sort of cut away to some rehearsal footage. And to me, that was just so revealing, just so wonderfully revealing to see Maestro and to see a pianist in rehearsal working and sort of in the nitty gritty. And this is something I still have to research and be a good curator of, is are there good rehearsal clips that we can show our students?
Laura, you made me think of a question about, have all of you taken voice lessons, since you're part of what you were saying you could practice right now is learning to sing and play? Have all of you studied?
Absolutely. It was painful for the teacher, but it was a good time.
I didn't formally study, but gosh, I sang all through, when I was younger, and junior high and high school and college. And so I never took formal voice lessons, but I definitely sang the whole time. So it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Same as Laurie. I've never had a formal voice lesson, but gosh, I really feel like I got an education sitting in on everybody else's voice lessons.
For sure, yeah.
Indeed.
We actually last year in my pedagogy application course, what did we call it the other day, Alan? Not application. Thank you. Practicum course. We used one of our professional pianists was one of the guinea pigs for one of my students. And I thought, what a great way for them to try lessons out for a quarter. And it worked out.
I did take voice lessons through college and sang leads in my high school musicals and stuff like that. So I think I came as a singer as well as a pianist from pretty early on. And I've just always had that special spot in my heart for singers, but I certainly don't aspire to the levels of the singers I now accompany.
I also have been dying to ask you all what you think of all the app companies, apps and different, it was interesting as one of the, as we launched these a couple weeks ago, of course, people wanted to know, how can we help our students have accompaniment? And so we talked about App Companist and other apps for them to use. And I've never seen it as a problem because it's used for a very specific reason, not as an ongoing basis. But I just wondered if you guys, as you've seen these launch, what your reaction to them has been.
I think in this particular circumstance, since you're not able to have your pianist with you so much as we're all social distancing to the best of our abilities, yes, when it starts to take work away from physical pianists, then I have an issue with it, I gotta say. If it's easier just to use a canned thing rather than hiring a pianist, yeah, then I have always had a little bit of an issue with that. But we're in extenuating circumstances right now, and if it's going to help you teach your lessons to have your singers using that it makes complete sense. Anybody else?
6 months ago, did it bother you, Laurie?
I don't want to get in trouble with the app companies, people. It seems a little one size fits all, but to be quite honest and quite candid, I haven't interacted with it, so I don't want to speak too much out of turn. My concern is that it doesn't take work away from pianists.
Our guys in the Ryan Opera Center have all been using it in the last week and a half. They've been trying to do things, and it's different. I mean, it will never replace like the spirit of someone else to be with, but in this time, for them to be able to also, apparently you can control the musicianship of it in the app, which is kind of neat. So in a certain way, you're still thinking about the music you want to make by yourself, and I think that could be a really good thing.
I had a colleague, we were preparing a recital, this was back in January, and she used it to sort of maximize her efficiency in the practice room. We did a set of Wolf songs, which were chromatically, just rung out all the time. And she used it and just set the tempo on the slowest, possible, like feeling every eighth note. So she could really dig into the harmonies and dig into the progressions. And so from my standpoint, that was time well spent so that we could have a more productive rehearsal, and we could talk about text and character and story and narrative and the things that you really want to dig into when you're in a rehearsal. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's something like App Companist is a great tool, and I've interacted with it a little bit, and it's really a pretty elegant solution from that standpoint. As Craig said, it's never going to take the place of a two-way street collaborative interaction. But if it makes my singers more productive and more aware of their surroundings when they walk in my office for a coaching, then I'm all for it. Absolutely.
I've been using it in my studio I teach emerging and professional singers and collegiate, and they've been using it for, I don't know, a year or two. And I don't see for any of them, they still schedule sessions with our coaching pianists, but they have that to practice with. And I don't see any of them using it as a replacement, just an addendum to exactly like what you were saying, Nicholas, so that then hopefully when they show up to their coachings, some of the kinks have been worked out. And so yeah, Rhonda?
Yes, I was thinking about, the precursor of App Accompanist were CDs inside the cover of a piece of music sold by Hal Leonard.
Yep.
And so I remember when I first saw some of those and I was sort of irritated, maybe like Laurie, it's like, well, I don't want, work taken away from me. And at that point I was totally a freelance and staff accompanist in a university setting in Wichita, at Wichita State. But turns out a pianist on the tapes, this wonderful French anthology or German anthology were Laura Brooks Ward, whom I worked with at Wichita State, and I admired her work so much that it kind of broke the wall for me. And then I was like, well, this is someone I respect. I trust her interpretive skills, and she knows the repertoire. And as I'm thinking about it now, and with App Accompanist also, one issue we're talking about as we go online is equity and access. Our students may be, or our people we work with, in our gig economy, maybe in this time period, they're going back to a rural setting to go home. Young students in particular, undergrads, they're going home to Eastern Washington or maybe far Midwestern Kansas or somewhere where the Wi-Fi is spotty at best and where there may not be a pianist in town for them to rehearse with. They're going to do their classes online, but they don't have access to pianists. And so some of these tools may be helpful in that regard for our singers.
I'm getting a couple comments that, people are saying that that they're feeling like the App Accompanist and other places, other apps are taking away work from them, from even the university pianists who could at least be recording tracks for students. And I'd like to say, I know Dawn Padula, who was one of my guests last week, she had the foresight when this started 3 weeks ago in Seattle to grab her students' music and get it to their pianist at the university. And she did not use those apps. She went about having him record the accompaniments and then send it to her students via MP3. I thought how brilliant that she thought of that. And I want to just encourage all of you to ask your universities to continue to support your pianists. That was one of the first things I thought of when this started and the emails all started going around. And I know Rhonda is on the forefront of that as well, of getting the university to continue to support the pianists by having them record the pianists or the singers, especially if they have recitals and whatnot. Rhonda, and we're still waiting official word on that, correct?
Well, we're waiting official word in terms of university budgeting, and that's always a challenge for any institution. But I do think that if we can have that person that has worked with the singer already, their own, I call it, it's a relationship. Collaboration to me is all about relationship built over time. If you work with someone from your freshman year to your senior year or to their senior year, as I did with singers, by the time they get to that senior recital or that master's level recital, and you've worked with them 4 to 6 years, you have this relationship of connection that allows music to lift off the page. So if they have had a relationship for a semester or so or a year or so with their singer, and they can make the rehearsal tape, that's the best if we're using electronics, because they already sort of understand one another's musical language.
Mm-hmm. I know at the university, oh, sorry, Alan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, my institution has made the commitment to continue to pay our accompanists, both the full-time and the part-time staff accompanists for the rest of the semester.
Wow.
And we've used them in a variety of ways so far. I mean, a number of our students, of course, were getting ready for our regional NATS auditions, so those got converted to online rather than in-person auditions. So a lot of them rushed as students were flocking out of town to try to get some recordings made. So they were able to do that. And then a number of them are making recordings for students and sending them to them. We're also, any of these apps don't have all the repertoire, and some of our students love the peculiar repertoire, and some of our teachers love the peculiar repertoire that's out there. And so, they're going to need the services of their staff pianist or their student pianist for the rest of the semester to help with some of those issues as well. And I personally think that for us as voice teachers, it's about how we message the situation we're in. We have to be a part of helping our students realize that this is not the normal way we go about making art. Our preferred method is the one we've been doing, where we're in the practice room with our compass, we're digging deep into things and we're making great art. And somehow we've been ripped apart from that situation. And we have some of these solutions that are short-term solutions that may help people who, like we've all discussed, are in remote areas, have no access to, anyone that can play for them live. And this is a tool that they can bridge the gap until we're all together again. And I think that's an important message for us to carry forth, to our students, to our colleagues, and to the whole community, really, that we have such regard and such respect for the partnerships that we develop in the collaborative relationship with our pianists and our singers and the teachers as well, that we desire for that to be back as soon as possible.
I love that. Thank you, Alan, for saying that, because I think the messaging of we voice teachers is so important right now. I often still see things from people on social media and other places that voice teachers don't appreciate the collaborative pianists enough. And it's just not my experience, but I think maybe we still have work to do from voice teachers to make certain that that continues, we bridge the gap, as Alan just said. I want to, let's go in, there's a couple things. Let's go this direction for just a moment before we talk a little bit about other technology. Sorry, I've lost it. Somebody asked, and I'm not seeing it now, about the independent pianist who isn't connected to a university. Here we go. This person's primarily a freelancer and has lost all her income for a tiny, except for a little institutional job. Singers have no work, so she has no work. She's thrilled to self-educate, so the ideas you gave earlier, but do you have any other ideas for the freelancers?
If you're out there in the world in the way that we all have been when we were starting out, it's all about how creative you can be about, again, the relationships, as you were talking about before. If you're in a place and there are voice teachers or there are singers, you should reach out to them and see what they need. Like, say, can I help? What can I do? And that's how so many relationships start. I mean, for me, so many from when I was just beginning that I still, really value now, that are so meaningful to me, were many times that I said, listen, how can I help you? What can we do together? How can we make something really fun for the audience? And I think that has to be the spirit that we all go forth in whatever way that we are. If you're in a place and they're college faculty in your town, you should write to them. Like, it's all there for you on the internet. You can find all the people who do what you do, and it's just about hustling. And now it will be about that even more,
Yeah. I feel your pain because, people they can't come coach if we're all trying to stay apart from each other. And because so many singers now are also completely out of work out in the wide world, that they're not going to afford to hire coaches. They can't even pay the rent. Mm-hmm. I started to talk in our chat before the broadcast tonight about one thing that I started doing about a year or two ago, and now has really come to the fore as sort of the ideal work from home gig, is making these study recordings for singers, which goes along with the recorded accompaniments for lessons and everything else. But I've sort of fallen into a niche of what Alan was calling peculiar repertoire. I do a lot of contemporary music, because, you know, my company, a lot of companies want to hear a 21st century rep. I have a lot of friends who are out there who have projects coming up with companies down the line who are doing workshops of new pieces, learning new pieces, and they're beside themselves trying to find some way to help study. And so I've started making these things at home as a kind of side gig that has sort of kind of morphed in the past few months, you know, which is something you could market yourself out to as well. Somebody gets in touch and says, I'm working on, what did I just do? Oh God, I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. I can't even come to mind right now. I've done a bunch of Nixon and China ones, you know, all kinds of things that there may not be good recordings out there of, and breaking it down into bite-sized chunks and putting these all into files on Dropbox and sending them. I sing cues, God help me. I just sang, I think I did a Rheingold for somebody. I got to sing Albury, which was fun. So I got to do all my fantasy roles finally. But, you know, provide movements, provide cues, play the vocal line over the accompaniment or just the accompaniment. I had someone just contact me and say, I just want the accompaniment so I can sing over that. Oh, Powder Her Face. That's what I was trying to think of. I just had 3 different people in different productions of Powder Her Face get in touch with me and say, please, nobody else knows this piece. I've got to practice with this. And the score is just a nightmare. So I made a fair amount of money over the past couple months recording Powder Her Face for people. But that kind of thing, reaching out, you know, and saying, I'm happy to do this. I can personalize it for you. Let me know what you need. Do you need this at tempo, under tempo? Do you need just the accompaniment? You know, and so this has become a good part of what I'm spending my days doing right now, because people can't come coach, people can't get to my house, I can't get to them as a solo coach practitioner, not in my university capacity. So that's one suggestion.
Laurie, we're getting a question about that. Do you price per hour or prep time?
And I'm not trying to flog my own business, by the way, but I do price per hour and I prorate, and I do add the prep time in, because if it's something like the Ades, which is just ungodly, and I've got to take some time, if it's a piece I don't know, it's not just for the sheer amount of music that's recorded, it's getting it into my hands. So it is an hourly rate. Then I'll prorate probably in quarter-hour increments, and then add time in for the prep as well.
And Rhonda and Nicholas, any thoughts from you guys for our independent freelance pianists?
I would just second what Craig said. You know, this is a time when we need to be checking in with each other, and even if it's somebody that you haven't heard from or that you haven't talked to in a while, just send them a quick message and say, how are you doing? What's up? I feel very fortunate to be at a school and to be a salaried employee, and I know that is a place of privilege right now, and so I feel a certain duty to reach out, and especially to former students and to other colleagues I've met along the way.
I'm going to make a suggestion that I thought that Kari brought up in another chat earlier, and some of you may be familiar with the Pocket Pianist, who is in Germany, I think, and makes video recordings of his accompaniments where you actually see his hands, the hands playing, and can anticipate some of the changes that are happening in the music a little bit more by also seeing the visual and the oral combined at the same time. And I think that's a great opportunity for some collaborative pianists who are resourceful and want to do some recordings that way, because I think I personally felt by just watching and listening to a few of those that I could make better decisions as a singer by having both of those things at me. Now, of course, when I'm with my coach or my accompanist, I'm never looking at their hands. I'm always, you know, but there's something about, I don't know what it was. There was something about it when I was watching. I was like, wow, I can really see where they're going with the accompaniment.
I think it's akin to us watching a singer breathe, right? It's the flip side of that coin. It's instead of accompanying a vocal line where you can't see the singer, we take our cues from the singers, watching them breathe, we watch their shoulders, we watch their inhalation, everything. So it's the same idea. If you're not in the same room, you can at least see what our hands are up to.
Right.
love-
I just
Ron.
wanted to say a couple of things for the independent accompanist, because certainly many of us, that's how we started out. That's for sure how I started out. And I had a fabulous idea, which is along these lines of these app accompanists and the rehearsal tapes we were talking about. This came from a member of our professional group at the University of Washington, our professional group of collaborators. And she suggested not only can she do like a rehearsal tape for an entire work, but she could also take a segment, or she and I were brainstorming this idea of take the B section, which the singer always struggles with in any piece or whatever. And they might say, I want this really slowed down. I know it's supposed to be a fast tempo, allegro tempo, but I need to rehearse it at a lento tempo for a while. So she could do a variety of tempi, or she could take particular, 8-bar sections, 16-bar section that's really difficult, and help them have a way to rehearse the problem spots. So in addition to a complete tape, have kind of targeted rehearsal tapes as people requested specifically. That's an idea that might have some legs. I don't know. It's a new idea to me, but I liked that suggestion. And the other thing is not really about accompaniment tapes, but is about the idea of us operating as independents. And one thing I've just loved this year has been, I've joined the Facebook group of collaborative pianists. I know that the younger people than me aren't on Facebook anymore, but these social media groups have been a lifesaver for me in terms of networking, in terms of getting ideas for things as basic as how much do you charge for a recording, right? And getting recommendations from other professionals and freelancers in the field. So I loved the professional, or it's called the collaborative group of pianists or something like that, collaborative pianist group. Another one that's been very helpful to me as I look to online teaching has been piano pedagogy group on Facebook. And so those types of things are available to us on social media. Even if we're independent and living in a small town by ourselves, there's ways, I think, to connect.
I'm going to go join right after this.
I know, me too.
You're awfully young, Nick, to be still Facebook. I always forget. I didn't realize that generational.
Well, I think Nick has a really creative solution that he and one of his collaborative partners, Kelly Burns, have been working on. He might want to describe that to us a little bit, and the solution that they've come up with to be able to perform together at a distance.
Sure, yeah. So Kelly and I actually were supposed to be in New Mexico last week. We're both involved with a foundation called the Patagorsky Foundation, which sends artists to rural pockets of the country where live classical music doesn't get a chance to thrive all the time. The New Mexico tour was going to be mostly school concerts, and so it became clear that that was not going to be able to happen. So in its place, I threw out a track of Schubert's Nacht und Träume and said, "Hey, do you want to record on top of this?" And he recorded, sent a track back to me, and then I threw it together in Adobe Premiere, which is available through my college. I imagine you could do it with iMovie or probably some other app, but there was an opportunity for us to throw a performance out there that we didn't get to do last week, and we're working on some other tracks for the future as well. I'd be happy to discuss the sort of technical aspects of what went into making that happen. I can, if anybody's interested in that, maybe reach out to me in the chat or in the comments, and we can find a way to discuss it. But it was actually a pretty just an evening project in terms of I recorded my video, he recorded his, and then I stitched them together and played with the audio levels a little bit. But the other great thing about it was that as I was playing my part, I was basically hearing him sing it, and knowing that he has essentially an aqua lung and can breathe for days, it seems. And I was able to do a lot with that. So I suppose this assumes that you know your singer pretty well, or you are making it as personal as possible for that singer. But it's been a really fun project, and it's been a nice way to sort of get through this time in the wilderness.
Nicholas, Heather Beatty is saying maybe you could record a demonstration on YouTube. Question.
It's on YouTube.
The final track is on YouTube, but I could work on making a demo about how to put them together. Yeah.
Speaking of Kelly, she has been very patient. She has a very long and specific question. Alan, am I hearing you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Kelly's a male.
Oh, thank you for that. I apologize, Kelly. So at his university, we have asked I'm speaking on his behalf. We have asked our collaborative pianist students to create accompanist tracks for vocal students that can be used for lessons, rehearsals, and for recording project that would be evaluated in lieu of both voice and collaborative juries. This means that our students are now forced to communicate musical choices with clear and meaningful languages. Something young students often struggle with because they're normally used to singing or playing through phrases as examples for each other to hear. What kind of dialogue, language, questions, considerations, etc. should be had between singers and pianists to help facilitate these recording projects so that they can be most musical experience possible given the current circumstances? Great question.
Yeah.
Really great question. So from our wonderful panel of pianists, how would you advise we teachers to instruct our singers?
Well, again, I think it's the same thing about relationships. It's just about that. So if you have two people, you have to figure out how they can have musical language in common, which is kind of amazing, actually, if you have the possibility to do it with so many different people, which is the fun of doing what we all get to do, right? Is that we collaborate with, hundreds of people a year. So I think it's the same, but in this way, it will require them to ask the tough questions without oftentimes having their mentors in the room to tell them what to do. And that to me is the most awesome thing that can come out of this, is that they, unsupervised, really have to talk about the choices. And I think the growth from that should be exponential.
Anyone else about communication?
Gosh, wouldn't it be really cool if the singer submitted a marked up score with the breaths that they want, or in a perfect world, this is where I'm going to breathe, I'm going to take some time here, I'm going to do this crescendo here to the max, and the pianist also submitted a marked up score with their sort of ideal vision of what was going on, and then you have a Google Hangout or you have a FaceTime chat, and there's essentially your rehearsal in a nutshell. Is you're talking about, well, you wanted to breathe here and I wanted to breathe in this place instead. So let's talk about, the mechanics of what goes into that. I feel like that's the essence of what rehearsal is all about.
Yeah.
Just may require a little bit of self-examination beforehand, though, especially for the singers. Let's commit to where that breath is, right? And maybe I breathe here, maybe I breathe there. I love that idea of submitting the marked up score, though. I think that's fabulous.
I love it.
I'm going to commit to this breath here. Sorry,
That's
Alan.
a lot of.
I just think that's a great exercise for some of our young singers to, they make so many assumptions. Oh, they'll follow me. Oh, they'll be, I'll slow down here. I'll speed up there. I'll take 5 breaths in this phrase that only needs 1. You guys know all of those things. And
I hope my collaborators don't ask me to do that. That's a lot of pressure.
But yeah, but having the singer, really in these times where we're separated, having them go through that exercise and say, yeah, I can't be here talking with you about it in the room. So here's what I think, and I love Nicholas's suggestion about just both parties doing that and getting together and really discussing that. It's just something I know my singers don't spend enough time doing.
My mind has really been on overdrive a lot lately in terms of, we're trying to find alternative assignments. We're trying to find alternative things for singers, for pianists to do in classes that are very performance focused, in classes that are not at all writing centric, really. I mean, you may give one writing assignment, but my fear is that through all of this, we're going to flood our students with reflection papers. write a reflection paper about this video that you watched on YouTube, write a reflection paper about this and that and that and that. So I'm trying to think of ways that get them to do without necessarily, I mean, not that writing a reflection paper or writing is a bad thing. I think it's always a great exercise to attempt to be more articulate, but in a class, in a course that is designed to be performance based and designed to be interactive in that way, how can we go back to process? How can we go back to this idea of what makes good rehearsal?
Mm-hmm. We're getting a few questions or comments about technology, and I'm not sure how much experience have you guys had. I mean, we've talked about the delay before the chat started, that there is this potential delay. Are any of you trying to do any online coachings that you have experience with technology challenges or insights?
You know,
Not yet.
just from the last few days, I mean, I don't have, you know, I have a few hours of this so far, which is not very many. But I think once you get into the work is the same. I mean, if they have to go back on the recording they have a minute to find the phrase again, then you find it, but it becomes the new normal. And, you know, obviously being there in person is better, so you hear even more intricately what they're doing. But at the end of the day, people need to sing and people need to play, and this is what has to happen. And I find that I just adjust to it, and that's the work is the work. And I hope that's the new normal will become normal really quickly for this time.
Hopefully it
So
won't.
Craig, are you submitting like a karaoke track of you
Yep.
playing to them, and then you're sort of observing them interacting with that track?
Exactly. And then if it has to change, I have to record something else, or I play something. I'm at the piano here doing it at home, and I find that it works pretty well. I mean, it's not as good, but at the same time, you can say the same things and get people to, you know, I find that right now, everyone is so emotionally vulnerable. And the act of singing and hearing the stress in people singing, and because, you know, we all just make whatever art we make in the way that we are. That's what that is. And I feel that for so many people, just to have the opportunity to sing with you in the way that they have these relationships with you will go a long way towards healing what is so hard for everyone right now in the world. And just those, again, it's about those relationships. Like once you feel nurtured by this person and they by you, I think it's awesome we can do this or have this webinar right now and have this possibility, because, you know, 20 years ago, if this had happened, it would have been a totally different, back in the 1900s when I was in school, like not, you know. But I find that the work is the work.
I'll encourage people to watch the Sunday's NATS chat that Alan and I did with 3 mental health therapists, where we talked about the grief and the anger and how important it is to feel the feels. But we brought the conversation back around to how important music is going to be to your. And I know my students last week, you know, they popped on the camera and you could tell their energy at the beginning. And every single one of them said at the end, as all of their contracts had been canceled, right? And they said, gosh, I just didn't know whether I should keep my lesson today, but I'm so glad I did, because I feel back to my old self again. So I think we have to do a good job of selling that to our students as well, that you have to keep singing even when you maybe don't want to. You have to keep playing. You have to keep connecting to the people that you have a relationship with through music.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Craig, somebody wants to know what you're using to record the track.
I use my iPhone, which is probably not the best, but it's easy, and I need to get a better recorder, which I should investigate shortly. But for right now, it's just iPhone tracks.
And that's
just-
part. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, if you don't mind, I would just say, when I made this video with Kelly, I used a professional grade camcorder, and Kelly used his iPhone, and the iPhone recording was better than the camcorder. So
Really?
yes,
Oh my God.
stick with the iPhone. If
All
you
right.
want, you can get one of these little microphones that plugs into the port on the bottom. It's made by a company called Shure. It gives a pretty decent recording, but even just the mic that's on the phone itself is in good shape.
Cool.
And Beth Parker is saying that accompanied recits work very well remotely as well as regular. So maybe that's another opportunity to help our singers learn how to do recitative, which we all know is a challenge for many singers. Has anyone used Zoom for rehearsing with students yet? I think we've somewhat answered. Not much, none.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, I haven't used Zoom.
So for those of, I suspect there's a lot of people on this chat that haven't been on previously. 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, Alan and I did a NATS chat, our very first one with a special edition, taking your teaching online. And we had a lot of panelists on there that have used Zoom and other platforms. So I could refer you to that as well, where you could learn a lot about Zoom. It's what I use when I teach. I either use FaceTime or Zoom, and they both work really well.
We happen to have a couple of techie type folks, NATS members, who have done a lot. They've spent the last week deep in the lab. You know, it's like consumer reports or something. They've been testing the audio signal from one place to another. So I'm expecting a report from them any day now, and I'm sure we'll see it online. But that, from what I'm hearing, you know, Zoom is probably about the best solution right now for most of us. There's some settings you can find out about if you watch one of those other videos or look on our Facebook feed. There's a couple of videos about optimizing your audio when you're using Zoom that eliminates some of the clipping and allows a little better audio quality. But I think most people, from my understanding, are using Zoom. There are a few other products out there, you know, for a lot of people, FaceTime works. And I really think what we all have to be is flexible. Our students and those we're collaborating with, they all have different situations, socioeconomically, technologically, and we just have to adapt. Sometimes it may not even be our preferred method. We're already not in our preferred method, but it may not be our preferred technological method either. And so we just have to try to be as flexible as we can in providing the services that they need.
And for, sorry to promote so many NATS chats, but and that's not my intent, but I see a comment about IPA. We also did a NATS chat last week about taking lyric diction online with Sherry Montgomery. So technological ways to connect with your students. So that might be of use to some of the coaches on tonight as well. And I want, Heather is saying to us, you can use a USB to Lightning connector on Amazon for $13 to $20 and then connect any USB mic to your iPhone or iPad.
Oh, nice.
So there's
Cool.
a USB to Lightning connector on Amazon, USB to Lightning connector. So I wanted to share that tidbit. Thank you for that. Let me just look at some questions before. Beth has been using Zoom. She said it's good to share your screen when working with text alone or just to make a diction note with IPA. And another for coaching recits. Sorry, Alan, go ahead.
I was just going to say also, if you have an old iPad laying around, I would encourage you to go back and watch the diction chat, because there's a Doceri app that can turn your iPad into a whiteboard. And a lot of us, you know, when we're writing things, we want to write down in our lap or on our desk. We don't want to like be writing on our screen or something like that. And it was really, really cool how it connects in. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to get it from teaching diction class, which I have to start teaching next week online and finish out the semester. So I thought that was really a great help. It's going to be a help to me.
And she's put some additional notes in the NATS chat on Facebook page that you might follow. Nicholas, could you share again the Shure mic that you have, please? And while you're getting that, you don't know yet if it works with Zoom. This person was saying that every time they plug mine in with Zoom, it stops working. Do you have any personal experience with that?
Yeah, I believe so. It's a Shure MV88. I believe you have to use the app. There's an app download that's made by Shure, and I believe you have to use that app specifically. So you would have to record a video or record audio in order for it to pick up what's coming from this microphone. Otherwise, I don't think it does. So I don't know if you can use it with Zoom. So that would be the only downside, I guess.
Okay. And someone else is recommending Mango Languages, MANGO, as another useful website for learning languages. Are you all familiar with Mango?
I'm not familiar with Mango.
And somebody is asking if you are seeking and receiving tech support from your institutions. I'll speak for the University of Washington. Rhonda and I are incredibly lucky. Within the School of Music, we have IT support that is phenomenal. But I know from previous chats that the smaller liberal arts institutions and other institutions do not have tech support. How about for you guys? Are you getting help within the institution?
I know it exists. I haven't had to use it yet, but Alabama is a monolith, so they've got all the bases covered, it seems. Roll Tide. So we've got all kinds of links and things if it doesn't work. So I think the support is there, but we're a great big university, so I can't speak for the smaller ones.
We have an IT department at Luther, but we also have the benefit of having a Center for Learning and Teaching, which has, in the past 2 weeks, they have put a myriad, just tons of resources online in terms of how to get your courses moved online and some technological ideas. So that's been very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Great. We lost Craig for a second. We'll just finish up here. One more. Somebody has written that Virtually Voice has an offer through Classical Singer for $3.99 a month, but you must sign up through Classical Singer. So just as an option from Accompanist. So, and not quite as flexible as Accompanist, but just another vehicle for all of us. Well, listen, I cannot thank you all enough for your time and expertise tonight. And I know that you're all university connected. And so for the independents, I think we did our best to try and give some creative ideas. And I would say, if you're feeling isolated as an independent pianist, please join some different Facebook groups. I'm seeing lots of ideas. I'm sure you guys are as well. Nats Chat is one place, but I'm sure there are the collaborative ones that you mentioned as well to get support and ideas. And
yeah,
Alan,
I would also mention that we just converted our NATS event calendar into a calendar where anyone can post an event that they're streaming, whether it's behind a paywall or whether it's free. So, there are opportunities, if you aren't so socially isolated, that you can get together with a collaborator and, do a recital, something you want to put behind a paywall or pay what you can kind of opportunity. I know some people are using PayPal for that and putting a link in there. Some people are, using more organized solutions, but we've opened that up for anybody to put an event on the calendar there, and then we will be trying to promote those back out as we see that calendar populate. We really just got it set up fully today, and so it won't have much on it if you go to it tonight, but put everything that you see happening. If somebody's managing to do their senior recital and wants to put it up there and they're going to stream it because they can't have an audience, put it up there. And if you have events that you want to create that you want to charge some kind of fee for, just pop it all in the box and put the links on it. And we want to be a part of the solution to helping people promote their work and promote their art during this time. And it's just so important for us all to find ways to stay connected. And this is one way we think that we can provide a solution for everybody to kind of come to a central place and collect all those events and promote them back out so that people can watch. And I can go one night when I'm not doing Nat's work and say, I think I'll listen to something tonight, and I go to that calendar and see what's on the calendar. So I hope people will take advantage of that and put their events on there.
thank you, Alan. Okay, Rhonda. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank NATS because one thing that I feel is lacking right now for us as collaborators is any kind of professional group that has conferences or journals or anything. I mean, we find our network and we find our tribes, but NATS for me has been one of the main ways I did kind of get connected. If I moved from Kansas to Seattle 20 years ago, sort of mid-career, and it was a huge hit because I was freelance and did some staff accompanying at Wichita State, but knew no one in Seattle. So NATS was the first thing that as a member, and one of the early members that was a full member, instead of, we used to, for collaborators, they used to be affiliate members, like music sellers. So we weren't full members. But I had a wonderful sponsor in Vern Yenny, a former past president of NATS, that was a wonderful tenor and voice teacher at Wichita State, and he promoted and encouraged me to join that. So that was one little way I got connected to a group, and I want to thank NATS for trying to enfold collaborators. They now in their journal have a regular column called Collab Corner, which Margot Garrett has kind of edited and helped promote articles from many contributors. So NATS also now is making their journal of singing, which is their professional journal, totally free and open for the next little while, right, Alan? Am I right?
Yeah, till the end of the term, because we know a lot of people students are needing to do research. They've been separated from their libraries. And so we made that open. You can go to the Journal of Singing page on the website and do a search. And if you're not already a NATS member, you can just create a guest account and it'll give you access to search the database, which goes all the way back to the 40s. Every article that's ever been printed in a NATS journal is in that database, and you can download PDFs of individual articles there.
It's nice for the independents because we can like look up an article by Margot Garrett or someone else, and it's
great.
Of
course, there are tons of articles on art song interpretation and lots of great articles that delve deep into song cycles and other works that can be really valuable to the collaborative piano students as well as the professionals. And I will just say it, collaborative piano and collaborative pianists have become a more integral part of NATS in recent years, and we've made particular efforts to carve out a space for collaborative pianists in NATS. And as with any new initiative, I think any of those kind of things have little growing pains and changes in culture. And I think that's part of what we're doing right now is trying to change that culture a little bit. Craig was a great collaborative masterclass clinician at our last conference, gave a great masterclass working with teams. And it was just a really fabulous masterclass, and we've had regular collaborative pianist clinicians on our conferences now, and it is important, I think, for all of us to have a community that we belong to, and I do think collaborative pianists, especially those who love the voice, have not had that organized community, and I hope that we can continue to build that community within NATS. And I think it's difficult out. Sometimes we call it the hinterlands. In the little chapters here and there. Every chapter has its own little culture, and that's not always indicative sometimes of the greater, larger national and international culture of NATS. And so I encourage all of us, collaborative pianists included, to just kind of jump in, forge new pathways, and if somebody gives you a hard time, email Kari or me. Because it really is important, and I think like we've already talked about, no other time than now have we realized how important, even more important it is for us to stay connected.
So with that, on behalf of all the NATS teachers, thank you all collaborative pianists for everything you do. On behalf of our singers, you're just invaluable to us, and I hope you know that and feel that, and we'll keep growing together and somehow get through this really difficult time together. And on the other side, to that end, Thursday, I know people have got to be so sick of our special edition NATS chats of me and Alan, but we want to serve all of the needs of our community. So we're doing yet another one on Thursday called Making a Professional Pivot. during COVID-19. And we're going to talk to some singers, a Broadway singer and a classical singer. Who else, Alan?
It's another all-star panel. Morris Robinson's going to be here.
Oh, cool.
Tamar Green, who's, George Washington, I think right now in Hamilton on Broadway, is going to be here. Morgan James, who's an independent artist. Nikki Sodergren, who's both an artistic director of a competition and a singer herself. And then who else is on there? Alex Fletcher, the agent Alex Fletcher, and also Joelle Harvey are going to be on that panel. So it's going to be a really great panel, and I'm really excited about the conversation we'll have about the situation that we're in.
Because they're losing contracts just like everyone else. So we have to keep finding the silver lining somehow through all of this. So thank you, panelists. Thank you, Alan Henderson, for your continued leadership as always. And have a good evening, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.